Imagine that one tiny place on the surface of the Earth had the power to change the weather everywhere, could affect the flow of water, could change the gases in the atmosphere, and play host to the biggest diversity of life on Earth. That place exists. The rainforest. A magical place. But one that's vanishing fast, protecting us all. This is the modern rainforest. Jungles are found all around the tropics, from South America, Central Africa, and Asia. They should be lush, wet environments, and yet each year, more and more goes up in flames. Some is due to deliberate clearing, making way for development and agriculture. While other fires are indicators of our changing, warming climate. Is allowing the rainforest to burn a wise move? Probably not. We are still learning about how rainforests work. But what we know so far clearly shows that rainforests are vital to the health of the planet and to us. For many reasons. Rainforests contain up to 90% of the world's species. An area equivalent to 10 football fields could house 1,500 flowering plants. "50 species of trees, 400 kinds of bird, and 150 species of butterflies. Fungi, reptiles, fish. The variety is endless. The range and beauty of wildlife in rainforests is staggering. Yet this remarkable habitat covers a mere 6% of the planet's surface. It's small and vulnerable. And already we're losing more than one species a day to extinction. Often before we've even identified them. Why does that matter? Because the natural world is full of links and connected systems. Brazil nut trees depend on certain animal species, like the agouti, a large forest rodent, to crack their powerful nuts and help new trees to germinate. The agouti cracks them to eat. But it doesn't eat them all. It buries some for later. Often it forgets where it left them, and the nuts can grow. Without agoutis, we could lose Brazil nut trees in the future. Some relationships are even more subtle. The Amazon water lily is the largest on Earth. Its half-meter wide pads could support a child. It's perfectly evolved for the flooded forest, able to survive as a seed in the dry season, or float at the surface when water levels are high. Its stems and leaves are spiny to deter the many animals of the rainforest from nibbling its leaves. But there's one animal that the plant does not want to deter. As the sun begins to set, the lily flower opens and emits a gentle aroma. With the intent of luring a scarab beetle. The lily's white petals stand out in the low light, guiding the beetle in. The beetle settles to feed on the lily flower, but must prepare itself for a lock-in. The flower gently closes, trapping the beetle inside. It keeps the beetle captive for 24 hours, while it happily munches away. And then its prisoner is released. By the time the beetle is out, it's covered in the lily's pollen, and the lily has turned from white to red, and no longer produces scent. Its need for a beetle pollinator is over, and the beetle's free to be lured in by the next white, sweet-smelling lily. Neither of these unique species can survive without the other. The whole plant and animal community is dependent on its neighbors. We humans also benefit directly from the incredible plant diversity of the jungle. A quarter of our medicine comes from the world's rainforest. For example, vincristine comes from the rosy periwinkle and is one of the most successful treatments for childhood leukemia. Many of the drugs used to treat cancer, HIV, asthma, arthritis and more come from the jungle. So far, only 1% of rainforest plants have been tested for their medicinal properties. There's no doubt there are many more miracle drugs yet to be found. Globally, many of our foods originally came from the rainforest too. Coffee, coconuts, cocoa, rice, mangoes, bananas, cinnamon, nutmeg, ginger, vanilla. The plants also provide gum, resin, dyes and tannins. Without rainforest rubber plants, we'd miss out on everything from elastic bands to tires. And the world's most beautiful and useful woods for building materials come from the rainforest. There's even a recently discovered fungi that can consume plastic. It might become one of our greatest allies in our fight against plastic pollution. It's a giant toolkit that enriches human life. At this time, the planet is under great stress. More than ever, healthy crops are vital to support the enormous human population. But for all the plant diversity, we rely on only 20 key species, like corn and rice, for the bulk of our diet. And these are susceptible to new diseases and the effects of climate change. The vast variety of plants in the rainforest might provide genes to improve the resistance of our most important crops. The rainforests have always supported people directly as well. Our ancestors evolved in jungles, and many people still live in the rainforests of the world. People are just as diverse in the rainforests as the wildlife. In biological hotspots, human groups are often culturally diverse, with many languages spoken across the most productive regions. There are about 1,000 distinct indigenous tribes living in rainforest, each with their own customs, languages, and ancient knowledge. Their unique identities are being threatened by the removal of the habitat around them. Human cultures are dying out. The livelihoods of more than 1 billion people depend directly on living in the rainforest. Living in towns and cities, we might feel detached from tribes walking around naked and hunting monkeys in the jungle. But their fate might be our own. Rainforests regulate many of the planet's vital life support systems that we all depend on, wherever we live, by acting as heat and water pumps. Rainforests are self-watering. When humans breathe, we release water. We see clouds of it condensing from our breath as transpiration. The moisture they release forms clouds overhead, which is why rainforests are always shrouded in mist. The clouds buffer, keeping the temperature and humidity below constant. The ideal conditions fuel the rich diversity of life inside the forests themselves. Most animals here have evolved to these unique conditions and need them to thrive. And few more so than amphibians. Most depend on large bodies of water to breed. But in the forest, the general dampness can allow for some very unique lifestyles. For the red poison dart frog, a mere puddle of moisture that's collected on the top of a leaf is enough of a nursery for their eggs, thanks to the humidity in the air. The parents guard the eggs. Once they hatch, the male begins a remarkable feat. He gently backs up to his babies. Instinctively, they know to climb aboard. Then one by one, he carries the little ones on an epic journey. He could take his babies to rivers or lakes, but big bodies of water are full of predators. So he looks for a baby pool. Because of the moisture in the air and the constant rainfall, every nook and cranny in the trees holds water. A bromeliad, a type of plant that grows on the trees themselves, using the trees to get it closer to sunlight. Collects water in its leaves. Perfect. Dad drops his kids off at the pool. He'll transport each one to its own private nursery in the trees. This journey is only possible because of the forest's high humidity, protecting his damp skin. But the clouds have a much wider impact. They reflect the sun's heat, cooling and regulating the climate. This stabilizes ocean currents, wind and rainfall patterns all over the world. The clouds of moisture over the jungle lead to frequent downpours. They're not called rainforests for nothing. In the rainy season, parts of the Amazon see dramatic transformations. The rivers burst their banks and flood the forest. Ground dwellers must swim to higher ground. Like the tortoise, this six-banded armadillo is a landlubber, built for digging on the forest floor. But fortunately, like most rainforest inhabitants, it can swim well to escape the deluge. But creatures usually confined to the river are now free to explore the canopy. A gentle giant, the Amazonian manatee, can paddle among the trees, browsing on leaves that would normally be out of reach. The perfect time to start weaning its tiny calf onto vegetation. Nutrients from the forest, normally locked away in the leaf litter, is stirred into the water. Leaf tannins, staining it like tea. It acts as fertilizer that works its way up the food chain for all to enjoy. From plankton to fish to dolphins. Like all dolphins, Butos, or Amazon river dolphins, are intelligent and social. Living in this murky rainforest tea, they have no need for good eyesight, and instead find their way using echolocation, listening for the echoes of their clicks and whistles bouncing off objects in their path. Large flippers and bendier necks help them negotiate tight corners as they explore the forest. Tiny creatures of the jungle must make their way into the canopy to avoid being washed away. But even here, they're not safe. With tree branches in reach, an athlete of the fish world is ready to strike. The arowana is known locally as the river monkey. It can jump 2 meters from the water to snatch insects and even birds. Other giant fish eat fruits and nuts, helping to distribute their seeds. Piranhas are normally thought of as vicious predators, but they'll eat vegetation, as do their close cousins, pacu. Both have powerful jaws that can crunch through tough-bodied nuts, a temporary stand-in for the agouti while the forest is underwater. A lot of the rainwater contributing to the floods fell in higher country, including the slopes of the Andes, and brings with it minerals that will sink to the flooded forest floor, an important annual top-up of fertilizer. Higher temperatures brought about by climate change have resulted in more extreme weather patterns. Over the last century, floods have become 5 times more common in the Amazon and now last much longer. What was a useful process is becoming a damaging one. Normally the floods subside, leaving fertilized, wet floodplains that are ideal for agriculture. But prolonged flooding can destroy crops, spread disease, contaminate water supplies, and isolate human communities, and threaten plants and animals of the region. The rainforest now experiences extremes. All the waterfalls at once in the rainy season, and the dry season gets more severe. Even the rainforests are experiencing drought and wildfires. Deforestation makes it much worse. When the trees are removed, water is no longer cycled, rains fail, temperatures go up, and droughts become common. In West Africa, deforestation is even causing the expansion of desert. Deforestation is responsible for about 20% of greenhouse gas emissions, more than all shipping, cars and aircraft combined. There is one natural ally in the world that can help fight the changing climate, but it's the forest itself. Healthy forests have a balance, a natural cycle. When plant and animal life dies and rots, it releases carbon. But in a healthy forest, the trees absorb that carbon dioxide for photosynthesis, to make food. The trees take in the carbon and lock it into their bodies as they grow. Rainforests also absorb about 20% of the carbon dioxide humans are releasing into the atmosphere through the burning of fossil fuels. When forests are destroyed, the carbon stored in the trees is released, and the trees, the only things that could actually absorb it again, have been lost. It's ever-increasing levels of carbon in the atmosphere that's causing climate change. It's acting like a big blanket wrapped around the world, trapping in more heat. Everyone knows that the polar ice caps are melting fast, and polar wildlife is struggling to adapt. But it doesn't just impact life on land. When there's more carbon in the atmosphere, it's more readily dissolved into the ocean. It becomes carbonic acid, changing the chemistry of the sea. This makes it harder for the babies of creatures with exoskeletons, like crustaceans and mollusks, to produce their shells. Including plankton. Plankton is vital to the world. It's the base of the food chain. Everything in the sea eats plankton, or other creatures that eat plankton. And humans rely heavily on this for nutrition as well. But the plant part of plankton has another important role. It produces 70% of the oxygen we breathe. We literally cannot survive without healthy seas. The oceans seem to have more fury in recent years, unleashing more powerful storms and tsunamis. Rainforests have a role here too. In the hot, wet tropics, a healthy rainforest absorbs heat and water, making it more inhabitable for all. By day, the tree canopy shields the forest inhabitants from the fierce tropical sun, but holds some of the heat during the night, regulating the region's temperatures. Without it, heat and moisture build in the atmosphere and result in ever bigger hurricanes and tornadoes, tropical storms that can wreak havoc and threaten life. Humans can look at the destruction of the rainforest and feel sad for the loss of natural beauty. But it's hard to realize how much our actions impact our own health and ultimately survival. It's not about a few kinds of animals and plants becoming extinct, but about the future for all inhabitants of planet Earth. We are all feeling the pinch from climate change. Record warm temperatures are leading to failed crops. And devastating wildfires. They are the results of the greenhouse effect, brought about by the gases, such as carbon dioxide, that human industries have pumped into the atmosphere. Without forests to cycle those gases, the greenhouse effect will only get worse. Carbon absorption is not the only benefit of photosynthesis. All of us must breathe to live. It's not an option. We have to do it. It's because of the high level of oxygen in our atmosphere that any of us can survive here and not on other planets. And that oxygen is made by plants as a byproduct of their photosynthesis. As they make food, we benefit from the oxygen they release. Our bodies breathe in oxygen, and our own byproduct is carbon dioxide. That's what we breathe out. The plants absorb it, and the cycle continues. The rainforest gives us 20% of the oxygen in the air. We are part of this natural cycle, and we can't live without it. The soil in the tropical regions of the world is poor quality. Rainforest trees compensate by having shallow roots and big buttress supports. The supports trap fallen leaf litter, holding it while it rots, providing the tree with its own compost, enriching the soil. Without plant roots binding it together, the topsoil is blown away by wind or washed off during floods. Farmers can try and use the land afterwards, but its productivity quickly decreases. They absorb vast amounts of rainwater and slowly, over time, release it back into the atmosphere. Areas that have lost their rainforests now suffer routine floods and droughts, making it difficult to grow crops. Nature's richness is replaced with poverty. It's not just wildlife that's threatened, it's all living things, including us. The wealth of the forest doesn't have to be measured in its value to us. Some of our planet's most beautiful and inspiring forms of life call rainforests home. Parrots, jaguars, gorillas, butterflies. It's an endless list of color, adaptation and beauty. Natural wonders we might lose. Currently, more than 7 million hectares of rainforest are lost worldwide each year. An area the size of Panama. "36 football fields a minute." Our very rapidly growing human population and consumer culture is pushing all land to its limits. Especially the rainforest. For all our futures, we need to stabilize carbon in the atmosphere. And the rainforest may be our biggest ally, given a chance. And like the Brazil nuts need agoutis, rainforest plants need the animals to weed out competition, spread their seeds, and fertilize the ground. No part of the rainforest can grow in isolation. It's a system that needs all its elements in place. Saving the rainforest is not about replanting it. It's stopping it from being felled in the first place, keeping it intact. Every one of us can help. We can think about where our food comes from and whether its production threatens the rainforest. Cutting back on all beef and palm oil products would be a major step towards halting the loss of forest. Reducing our energy consumption would help slowly bring down the carbon emissions from fossil fuels. And more than anything, conservation today comes down to politics. Voting for the right political agendas that seek to conserve, not exploit, the riches nature has to offer. What affects the rainforest and its wildlife affects us all. The fate of the jungle will dictate our own.